What's going on, YouTube? And welcome to Goal Line Hockey. It's Kevin Forte, and today we are taking a look at your 2023 Stanley Cup champions. It's the Vegas Golden Knights. What a season it was for the Golden Knights. A crazy season last year. Their first time missing the playoffs. Facing a little bit of adversity in the offseason. Firing then head coach Pete DeBoer and bringing in Bruce Cassidy, who had some good runs with the Bruins. But he was kind of exiled from Boston. And the Bruins are, it's kind of weird how things kind of crumble, right? The expectations for Vegas were that they could get back to the playoffs this year. Boston goes on, wins the President's Trophy with their new coach, and then the Bruins lose in the first round to the Florida Panthers, who the Golden Knights beat in this year's playoffs. So it's kind of interesting to see how things kind of unravel. The regular season, it looked like a success for the Bruins, and the Golden Knights, a good season, but, Bruce Cassidy was kind of available because the Bruins wanted to go a different direction. And, maybe if Bruce Cassidy had been with Boston, would they be the team right now lifting the Stanley Cup? Who knows? But, I think right now when you look at what happened in this year's playoffs, it's a perfect example of a team like the Vegas Golden Knights that has the grit, but also has the skill and just the depth overall to just punish you and beat you. We've seen a lot of teams like the Florida Panthers go on those deep playoff runs. And, what's interesting about their situation is they're a team that maybe isn't the most skilled team. They're not even one of the better teams in the league. But the way they are structurally, and, credit to Paul Maurice and the way he's kind of structured that team, their attitude, they're very difficult to play against. They get in their opponents' heads. They're a pest. They weren't able to do that against Vegas. Vegas was the first team to have the mentality of, really in those first three games of the series, to say, listen, little bro, they kind of little broed the Florida Panthers, and any kind of crap that they were trying to get, into Vegas's head, Kachuk, Gudis, Bennett, all those guys were trying to make life as difficult as possible for the Golden Knights, but the Golden Knights never really retaliated. There was the game where Pietrangelo obviously fought back a little bit. He's a grumpy dude. He's a grumpy old defenseman there in Vegas, and, he definitely had his allegiances throughout the playoffs. He got suspended in the Edmonton series. So you could tell the Panthers were going after him a little bit, but it didn't work. And the same thing happened with Nick Hague and Keegan Colasar on that blue line. The Golden Knights were just able to weather the storm. Now, when you look at their playoff run, obviously in the first round they beat the Winnipeg Jets in 5 games. That was an impressive series, but not too surprising. But we started to see just how real the Golden Knights were. Then they go to the second round. They play the Edmonton Oilers, who were really the favorite north of the border, the favorite Canadian team at that point. Even with the Leafs still in the playoffs, they beat them in 6 games. Really impressive series there for Vegas. They let it up a little bit, but they didn't really relinquish it all that much. It was a 3-1 series, and then, obviously they win a game, and that's kind of what happened. Similar situation in the conference finals against the Dallas Stars. They kind of had full control of that series. Dallas ended up coming back a little bit, winning 2 straight games, and that was it. That was the end of the story, and Vegas said, no, we're not letting them come back. We are not going to a Game 7 here. We're going to finish this business. And then they get to the Cup final, where they definitely took care of business against the Florida Panthers. What's really interesting, too, about this and impressive about the Golden Knights' run this year, they did not play in a Game 7. They did not play in an elimination game this entire playoffs, which the grueling task from when they started Game 1 against the Winnipeg Jets, they actually lost that first game, to now at a point where they have won the Stanley Cup. People don't realize, especially when you get deeper into the playoffs, how critical it is to close out series in 5 or 6 games. They had 2 series that went to 5 games, obviously the second round and the Cup final. And the first round and the third round, the conference final, they were able to finish those out in 6. And there were a couple teams that in the first couple rounds of the playoffs, it seemed like they were playing with their food a little bit. I thought that caught up to the Carolina Hurricanes. To an extent, it caught up to the Florida Panthers. Remember, they were down 3-1 in that series against the Boston Bruins. They had to fight all the way back for a Game 7 in overtime. They really had to claw and fight their way through. Even in that Carolina series in the conference final, a lot of overtime games. So despite sweeping them, they definitely, they took a pretty good beating in that series despite sweeping the Carolina Hurricanes. So the Vegas Golden Knights, they just took care of business. They did what they had to do. And, we've talked a lot about their their defense, and I've talked about that the entire playoffs. Even in my preview for this series, I talked about that Vegas Golden Knights defense. They have one of the biggest defensive groups in the entire league. And you look at just overall the size of the players on that blue line. You know, Nick Hague is obviously the standout on the blue line. You know, he is no joke. Nick Hague is, I believe, you guys are going to fact check me, 6'6", 221 pounds. Absolute monster. He could probably join, if there's an NBA team ever in Vegas, he could probably make that team. Shea Theodore, 6'2", 195. Alex Pietrangelo, I believe, is 6'2". Keegan Colasar he's a pain in the neck defenseman. That's what's interesting about his situation. Let me see if I can find Colasar. Oh, he's a forward. Wow. That's kind of embarrassing. But you get what I'm saying. Even on the up front, right? Even some of the guys up front. Mark Stone's a big dude, right? He's a power forward-esque player that can score goals. And we saw how big he was in this series. We'll get to that in a minute. But just overall, the makeup of this team, forwards, defense, they have a lot of guys that in a playoff series can grind you down, right? Mikey Amadio, Nick Waugh, Chandler Stevenson, William Carrier, Keegan Colasar. All those guys, even up front, are really a pain in the ass to play against. And that kind of caught up to the Florida Panthers here. And we see a lot of teams. That's why St. Louis winning the Cup in 2019 was so impressive, because they were the kind of team that, with Craig Berube and that group, they were just able to grind teams down. And that's not always how it works in the playoffs. You're not able to just grind everybody down. And, once you get on that, that third round, the conference finals to the Cup final, it is an extremely grueling task. And it just kind of exemplifies how difficult it is to win the Stanley Cup. And the Vegas Golden Knights were able to do that. They were also able to score enough goals, play really good defense. They just were able to do all of it. They just had the complete package. I'm really happy for the city of Vegas. I know a lot of people are upset. In 6 years, the Golden Knights win a Stanley Cup, but this is good for the game of hockey. Seeing the Vegas Golden Knights go on this run, we're going to see new NHL teams, guys, whether you like it or not. We're going to see teams in Houston, Atlanta, Salt Lake City, maybe even a return to Quebec, Kansas City, all those places. I think this is great for the game of hockey. It's going to raise the price tag. We saw, obviously, the Ottawa Senators, let's be honest, not even a huge market, a smaller market in Canada, getting $1 billion in terms of their value. This is good for the game. This is going to create more expansion. It's going to grow the game of hockey. Yeah, the NHL is going to make more money, of course. That's the bottom line at the end of the day. But this is good for the sport. And for a league that, considering in terms of the core four between the NBA, the MLB, and the NFL, the NHL is really fourth on that list. Revenue-wise, popularity-wise, this kind of stuff is going to help them elevate that level to, maybe, let's be honest, no disrespect to MLS soccer, but, the NHL is kind of in the same category as MLS soccer. At the very least in the States, I think they're trying to change that. And when you saw the amount of fans outside of T-Mobile Arena in Game 5, that is a testament to a hockey market. And, there's a really good quote. I think it was, I don't love Gary Bettman, but the quote is great. Not only is this a hockey market, this is a champion market. And there's a big difference there. There's a difference between just having a team and finding success and winning championships in that city. And, shout out to George McPhee, Kelly McCrimmon, Bill Foley, that entire group. The Vegas Golden Knights have been known as a cutthroat franchise. They've let some really big name players go, right? They traded out Alex Tuch, Nate Schmidt, Marc-Andre Fleury. They've made some really tough decisions, and I think that's going to manifest throughout the league. Some of those cutthroat decisions, the NHL, there was a sentiment even in this past winter that the Vegas Golden Knights are losing that aura of such a great glitz and glamour destination because, it's kind of cutthroat. Even guys that were given long-term deals and, the loyalty to the franchise, that stuff kind of went away. And yeah, there was a lot of criticism and a lot of questioning about some of the moves they made, but you look at some of the moves they even made over the last couple of years, right? Chandler Stevenson, let's be honest, a top 6 center on this Golden Knights team. They got him for what, a 3rd or 4th round pick from Washington? He's been incredible. Way over that. The Capitals are definitely banging their head against the wall saying, why didn't we trade him for more? Aiden Hill, I think they got him for a 5th or a 6th round pick from the Arizona Coyotes. Yeah, I'll take that too, right? So there were so many guys on the Vegas Golden Knights that they took a chance on. And yeah, a lot of the guys they've traded out and guys that were traded in, but they got the right core, and a lot of guys were able to find a way to make it work. Shout out to the Conn Smythe winner, Jonathan Marchessault. The Florida Panthers, the team he beat in the Cup final, they were the team that said, listen, we're going to trade you Riley Smith, draft picks, and whatever to take Jonathan Marchessault. That's going to sting a little bit. That's a blow on the ego. That's a blow on you personally. And I think he was coming for vengeance, and he definitely got that. Shout out also to Alex Pietrangelo. He was considering retiring and quitting hockey. Obviously our thoughts were with him and his family as their unborn child passed away. So there's been a lot of stuff going on with Pietrangelo personally. So there are so many good stories. Despite a lot of people maybe being upset that Vegas won, there were so many storylines to look at. This was the team of misfits that nobody wanted. Nobody wanted William Karlsson, right? He was exiled from Columbus. Marchessault and Riley Smith, right? They were exiled from Florida. There were so many guys on this team, and even guys like Mark Stone, right? They didn't want to give the big contract in Ottawa. Mark Stone was going to get another chance in Vegas. Jack Eichel, they weren't willing to give him the surgery he wanted. He wasn't worth doing that surgery for, right? They weren't willing to take a chance on him. He goes to Vegas, right? Yeah, nobody can win with Jack Eichel on their roster. Yeah, that take looks really bad right now, as he is a Stanley Cup champion a year removed from leaving the Buffalo Sabres. So, again, let me know what you guys think down below. I think it's been an incredible playoffs. It's, disappointing in the sense that, this didn't go a little bit longer. It was kind of written in the wall that, the Vegas Golden Knights were going to take care of business in this series, but it just shows the level of how good they really were. And they need to get respect, because I think right now this is a team that, not even for this year, but I even think the next 2 years, maybe even 3 years, the Cup window is open in Vegas, ladies and gentlemen. And Bill Foley said in the first 6 years, we're going to win a Stanley Cup. He was right on the dot, and he said that back in 2017. So guys, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and Viva Las Vegas. Congratulations, the Vegas Golden Knights, and I will see you guys again next time. Peace.